It's Saturday night, and it's another big weekend of shows on Sportswire Radio, and we are going to have a matinee combo. And to kick things off for us tonight is a man that used to be all full of violent love, but if you watched Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling's Power Hour show last night, it looks like he figuratively and literally is loveless, and he's going to tell us why. And he's also going to tell us, I have no doubt about repercussions for his once former tag team partner who he held those championships with. Certainly, he may be called Daniel James, but like I said in his video, he might wish to be called Edward James after what I pronunciated him in our interview earlier today to announce our guest. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited about our guest tonight because he has quite a journey. He has quite a journey inside the ring, outside the ring. He even does some of this. He can certainly spin a tune or two. He can certainly talk about the scene in the nightclubs. He can talk about his journey in the wrestling world and kind of how it all blends, and also talk about what makes him the person that he is today. And I'm also excited because we are kicking off a weekend full of shows for our friends over at Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling, because they have a great show coming up 2 weeks from today called Future Shock. And although our guest might have certainly still have felt the aftershock after what not only his tag team partner did to him, but also those Brooklyn Prodigies, and I know those guys very, very well, I may have a thought or two on them. But I could go on and on and on about our guest. But it's time to give him that introduction that so many people that he has certainly shared a locker room with have gotten, maybe even a few of his opponents have gotten yesterday, like the Dawn's March, and especially Chase Wakefield, the Bitcoin billionaire who's actually in our Hall of Fame, Sugar Dan Stofko, and certainly a couple of guys he's probably heard of named Kid Mike, and even Van Hansen, Mr. V to the H, Mr. Judgment, Brandon Costello. We can go on and on and on about many guys he shares a locker room with who have gotten that introduction. So now it's time to give him that same introduction that he deserves. And maybe he'll be a little bit less loveless after this and maybe get us some violent love he's going to actually give to his opponent, Daniel James, when that time comes. But ladies and gentlemen, let's get right to it and introduce our guest in the first of two shows this weekend for Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling. So we're done! Wait for it! Further ado here on the Sports Report. Number one. Global Sports Show. They call him the be-all, but his name is simply put from Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling. Andrew Loveless. My friend, welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me.
I'm always good to have you. I mean, always good to have anybody on Sportswire. We're the people's
How do
house.
you-
We're all wrestling.
How do you still have the breath after that kind of announcement? Like that introduction, wow.
Well, it's funny you said, well, I'm going to tell you a funny story. First of all, I'm going to have to give you a couple thoughts on that, but I usually hate to do it about me, but I'll do it. I'll tell you a few things here. First of all, I was on the air had to have been about a month and a half ago. I was actually on the air with the general manager for our friends over in Coming Out Championship Wrestling in the UK, Taylor Trutz. And keep in mind, I had not interviewed him in over a year, so it was a really big deal to bring him onto the show, and he was looking forward to it, and blah, blah, blah. as I'm doing that intro that I just gave you, Mr. Loveless, I clutched my chest and I'm like, uh-oh, either I'm going to have a heart attack or I'm going to lose my voice. And I kind of like clutched my voice and I'm like, oh, all right, I hung in there, but I could definitely tell something was up. But I kind of took a break the rest of the day and it was okay. It never happened. But I will tell you that especially doing this intro today, because my head has been pounding like inside my house. I knocked on doors for 3 hours doing something, and it was like then at home it was just like I slept for maybe a grand total of 3 hours. So like this was one of those days where it was like I might be on 50%, but I'll guarantee you, not to toot my own horn, my 50% is still going to be better than most podcasters, 100%. And on top of that, I know Mr. V to the H was just on a podcast that we were obviously plugging at Power Hour yesterday. I'll still put my money on, I'll still put my life on it, that when V to the H is on Sportswire, he has a better time. And when you're on Sportswire, you're going to have a better time. When you're a hardcore DJ, we'll get to that in a little while. And I guarantee you that you'll be spinning tunes. You'll be having energy, especially after this show tonight where we talk about a lot that's going on in your world. So that's my answers to you, my friend.
It's impressive.
Now I'm fired up. Now I'm actually ready to go because, before
Good.
I was like, okay, my head's pounding. How am I going to do this? Now I'm ready to go, which means now you're getting my 100%. Not only get my 100%,
Good.
you get my 150% because actually I was on the radio yesterday until 1 o'clock in the morning. We brought these new guys over onto Sportswire and they're like, Tom, I've watched you on these shows before. And you know what? I want to run through a wall after hearing it. So I guarantee you that you're going to want to run through a wall. You're going to want to run through Daniel James. I'm going to want to run through a wall. But it's absolutely an absolute honor to have you, my friend. Enough about me, enough about my voice and how many times I've done this, blah, 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 blah. I want to get to know you. And especially for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, where all wrestling matters. Andrew Loveless, I was expecting you to come on to Sportswire Radio with one half of those Amplified Wrestling Tag Team Championships. And it looked like it was going to happen that way. And then yet, for whatever reason, we saw the Brooklyn Prodigies get interjected in this match and make it a triple threat randomly. And then to boot, your tag team partner, your best friend, Daniel James, basically pulled a Benedict Arnold. And I'm trying to parcel through all of this. And what the heck happened, Andrew Loveless?
Correction, it's Edward James. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was dealing with a mental disorder. He's been struggling with something. I've been hearing he's been dealing with doing therapy and all this stuff. Or if Ashlyn Shaw ended up manipulating him, or maybe it was just plain ego. All I know is he ended up costing us 9 months of hard work. I remember us working tooth and nail for the last year and a half to be able to establish our team and do everything we could to be able to work our way around the tri-state area. And then he ends up, out of nowhere, he picks his spot and ended up laying me out with his barbed wire bat.
Well, I mean, let me ask you this question. You guys have been partners for a while, and I want to say hello to my guest at 11 o'clock, Mr. Drake Golddragon. Drake, good to see you. I'll see you in a little while. But, you guys are partners. You've been champions for 9 months. You guys have been partners for a year and a half. So did you suspect that this was going to happen? Was there anything in sort of the partnership that would have said, you know what, maybe there was dissension? Was there anything that you saw from your vantage point?
Not really. Then again, Edward James, he's pretty unpredictable. He likes working that hardcore style. He's pretty sick and twisted. When I first met him, I knew what I was getting myself into. But then the last couple months, communication fell apart between us, and he became harder and harder to contact and bounce ideas off of for us to take into training. And he kind of went MIA. And all I kept hearing about is he was teaming up with the Sons of Mifflin County in Lewistown. And I'm like, okay, interesting, but he won't return my phone calls, my text messages. And then
but you guys were champions. He didn't look at the fact, Edward James didn't look at the fact that you guys had built up this resume, had built up this run as champions, and that didn't matter in keeping those titles?
I have no idea. To get in to get in the side of that guy's mind, like it's got to be terrifying.
Let me ask you another follow-up question. Obviously, Dennis G interjects in the Brooklyn Prodigies. Now, I know those guys, and I'll get to them later. But do you think, in a way, that Mr. James was in cahoots with Dennis G at all? Do you think there was anything there? I mean, kind of bizarre there, right? That Dennis G all of a sudden interjects the Prodigies and it becomes a triple threat, literally 2/3 to 3/4 into the match. I mean, at that point, I mean, there's really nothing you could have did, but it
We had
almost
the
has
Don
to.
Mark right where we wanted him.
Well, that was my point. You guys were basically in control of the match, and I know the Dawn's March. I mean, you
Yeah.
basically were gonna. It looked like it was gonna be another foregone conclusion. You guys were gonna continue your run as champions and continue being, one of the greatest tag team champions we've seen in Amplified history. But yet, then again, Dennis G all of a sudden says this match is a triple threat, and then comes out the Brooklyn Prodigies, and then like right afterwards, maybe less than 90 seconds later, you're on your head.
Yeah, from my perspective, all I heard a voice off the entrance, and Chase Wakefield turns. I took my opportunity. I hit him with a vertebreaker.
We thought game, set, point. That was it.
Yeah, and I thought, okay, I had him right there. That would have been our opportunity to retain the championships and use that. Like, I don't want to play dirty, but at the same time, when the championships are on the line, you do what you got to do. But next thing I know, here comes Brooklyn's finest, or Brooklyn's prodigies.
That did sound like the old TV show on Fox. Yes, it was a
right.
Brooklyn 9-1, whatever it was.
Yeah, well, I've been obsessed with that show too. So, like,
fair play. I actually am from Brooklyn, New York, so I mean, I appreciate the Brooklyn references. Somebody was born in the borough.
I've done a lot of DJing up in Brooklyn too.
We'll talk about that. I have no doubt.
But yeah, I saw the distraction and I thought, okay, Edward James had my back. Next thing I know is like I turn around, I get blasted in the gut with a barbed wire bat, and then he lays me out, and yeah.
The audience, everybody was stunned. I mean, the whole thing, it just unraveled almost all. That's why I have to ask: do you think that was there something that would say Dennis G, the Prodigies, and Edward James were in cahoots? Was this predetermined almost for you guys to just say, you know what, I want nothing to do with you, and forget about the year and a half, the 9 months we've had as champions. It's just time to,
anything's possible. You know the slogan, never say never when it comes to wrestling.
Absolutely. But, you guys were, it's one thing if a team is struggling, and it's one thing where, everything that looks like should have happened, there was kind of a correlation as to why. But in this case, I didn't see this one coming. I mean, obviously you would know better than anybody, but, watching
I didn't see it either, honestly.
So how does that make you feel?
I'm pretty pissed, honestly.
And what are you going to do about it, though? We have March 30th coming. I mean, I obviously don't know, what the future is.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not at 100%. When Brooklyn's finest ended up dumping me over the top rope, I ended up almost breaking my spine across that metal frame.
I was surprised you still came back into the ring afterward. You had, I think, a little bit more. You did, and then I think Chase Wakefield was the man that ate the pin. But that's I guess the minor victory here in this. But I mean, I was surprised you were even able to, get out of the building almost alive.
I'm not gonna lie, Irish pride is a hell of a thing. Like,
happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. Like I could probably break a limb and still drag myself wherever I need to go. Like I can't be one of those guys that just lays there and asks for help.
But being a part of one of the more storied tag team champions in Amplified's history, and then for as long as you guys have been champions, I have to imagine that you did not expect this championship run to end the way it did.
No, not at all. I didn't see it coming. Like, I'm honored to be a part of that history, that company's history.
Sure.
Like, to me, growing up as a child, loving wrestling, studying wrestling my whole life, like that's what I wanted. Like I wanted to be able to win championships to honor my brother. That he ended up taking his own life.
I'm
So
sorry to hear
like,
that. I'm sorry.
that's why I ended up getting back into professional wrestling. And to go out of the 2 year mark of me getting back in and training and being able to win that meant the world to me. And then all of a sudden, Edward James turns on me. Like, it's not over between me and him. Trust me on that. I'm not at 100%, but the day is going to come when I get a hold of him. And it's not going to be pretty. Like, Violent Love might be broken up, but we got some unfinished business.
I have to ask you, and I'll say hello to people. Obviously, if you want to follow Andrew on social media, I would highly encourage you do so. But you did mention your brother there, and you talked about coming back into wrestling, and you did this all for him.
Yep.
And it seemed like what Edward James did, I'd have to imagine, was personal and more than any other way you could imagine. But
Yep.
you came back to this sport because of your brother, and you had
Yeah.
this magical run where you're champion for 9 months. What did your brother mean to you, if you don't mind me asking for the audience? Because I know it's a tough thing to obviously bring up, but what did your
No,
brother
no, no.
mean?
Not now. It's not like
No, I
I'm.
understand.
It's still a little emotional, but like,
It's always going to be emotional. You lost somebody that was close to you. You lost somebody that
yeah,
meant a lot onto the journey, and we can never see them again. It's a very difficult thing. I mean,
right.
I have all the sympathy in the world for you, and I think everybody that would watch this eventually, would, because it's not an easy thing to go through.
Yeah, true. Yeah, my little brother, he meant a lot more to me than people realize. Like me and him, we grew up. He was the one that actually turned me on to professional wrestling.
Oh wow!
Uh, I remember 1992. I was maybe 8 years old. Yeah. And he went to his best friend's house, and his very first match he ever discovered was Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect working
Oh
together.
wow! Okay, okay.
So he came home. He's like, "Oh man, you need to check this out. Like this is so cool. This is everything." And like after that, like he planted the seeds, and all the way up until it happened. We used to get together every Monday to watch Monday Night Raw. Every Tuesday back in the day when SmackDown was on.
Yes,
Before it
that's
was
right.
funny. Yeah.
SmackDown
And
originally
then
SmackDown was on Tuesdays. Yes.
when the format switched around and NXT was filmed on Wednesdays, we would wait until Thursday and we would download it from like tort files just so this
Oh
way we could
wow!
watch it and study it together and take notes and figure
Yeah.
out match building and how to move in the ring and things like that.
That's pretty cool that you actually would go and watch and pre-record or DVR, whatever it was that you did, and you would analyze and go over the way everything took place in your own way with your brother. That's pretty, pretty unique. I mean, I have to say that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was our special bond. Like if you ask anybody, whenever you seen us, we were always together, always studying. Like we would travel to like places like Imagine Wrestling, IWC, APWF, like pretty much anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania. Like
Oh wow!
if we could get gas money and we had a free weekend and neither one of us was working and we were like 15, 16 years old, we would load up. We'd
Oh
just
wow!
take like a 6 pack of soda and just drive somewhere and
That's
we would
me
just
still.
go.
I've got a big gulp right now, so there you go.
Yeah, yeah. Like for me, it's like energy drink and a bunch of water right here. A little bit of creatine.
Well, you're
But
the
yeah,
you're the one in the ring. I'm trying to stay awake in the ring, but different conversation for a different time. But I mean, that's pretty wild though that you and him would drive up and down the state of Pennsylvania. And for the audience out there, Pennsylvania is a big state. That's a
yeah,
huge, huge amount of places you crisscross. Pennsylvania can go as far as almost up into Three Rivers. Pennsylvania
Yeah.
can go as south as Philadelphia and into the Jersey line. Then you have Pennsylvania that
Yep.
almost straddles like upstate New York. So that really, I think, shows that you guys really crisscrossed and took a lot of frequent flyer.
Scranton, Erie, like all the way down into Pittsburgh. Like,
Oh wow.
yeah, we traveled all that. Our big break in was we were doing security and stuff out around Toledo. That's how
Okay.
we first got welcomed in. Was we were working for NOW out there.
Okay. I've heard of
Yeah,
NOW. I actually have heard of NOW. Wow. So you were doing security, and that was kind of how you
yeah,
guys worked your way. Maybe I would imagine into some training and maybe meeting some different guys. And
yep,
well, what was that experience like? Usually people do it alone. I had a guy on a few years back who I actually met. His name was Reynaldo. He was a UK wrestler who was the world champion, and he traveled all the way to learn to be a professional wrestler from the UK to Canada, actually in Hamilton, Ontario. And the reason he did that because at the time in the UK, there really wasn't places you could go to a school. So he had to go all the way on his own. But you actually got to learn and go into the process of being a wrestler alongside your brother. That had to be really special.
yeah. It was interesting because like I actually like in my gear bag, I still carry his ring mask with me. So every show I go to, it's a little piece of him with me, experiencing every match that I'm at. So it's pretty awesome. Like I remember him. He used to dress up like a plague doctor. Yeah, yeah. So it was pretty interesting, and I actually sat down and I rewatched him working the Royal Rumble out at 5 Star Wrestling, I think it's called, out there around. Oh gosh, I can't even think where it's at right now.
Southern Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it's about like an hour. I want to say about an hour and 20 from where I'm at.
Wow. And you kept that, it meant that much to you by keeping
Yeah.
that and going out there with, it's with you. I mean, that's got to be something that maybe makes you want to be motivated, right? Motivated
Yep.
not only to do it for him, but now
Yep.
after what happened to you to, get back at Edward James, especially after what Edward James did to you and cost you guys something that meant so much.
Those days when you're tired and you're sore and you're beat up and you feel like you don't want to go to the gym or you don't want to go and train, and that is when I go and I grab that mask and I look at it and where I think about where we started and how many people overlooked us. I remember being 15 years old and going up to a talent. I'm not going to say his name, but
I appreciate that actually because on Sportswire a few days ago, we had a guy come on, very
yeah.
well known in the backyard wrestling scene. He said a few things about a couple different people, and it,
No,
as you
no,
can
no.
imagine, yeah,
Like I love what we do and I respect everybody.
me too.
And I don't want to name drop anybody and
I
say it in a
appreciate that.
negative way
I
and
really do
people make it
appreciate that
context.
actually. I
But
really appreciate that.
like I went to this one guy and I asked him, I was like 15-year-old me,
Mhm.
super white, real tiny. Like I was this nerdy little kid. And I was like maybe 60, 70 pounds at best. I was like, so what steps do I have to take to become a professional wrestler?
Hmm.
Like I was like most people would have been like, hey, either one, don't do it because you're gonna get beat up and injured
Yeah.
and it's not worth it because it's
That-
not worth the pay, which
That's what I.
honestly
Well,
that's a whole
I
nother
know a lot.
broadcast we can go into for another day.
Yeah, I
But
know a lot about that. Yeah, I know a lot about
yeah,
that. I heard
you pretty much got to be fed by passion. But no, like instead of him taking the positive route, he was like, "You're too small. You're way too white. You'll never make it in this business, kid." And in the back of my mind, that's fueled me for my entire life. Like
Hmm.
besides my brother, that exact quote like feeds me. So like when I'm there and I'm laying on the ground and I'm beat up, like I think about that quote and I'm like, yeah, there's no giving up. Quitting is not an option. Like Like this is me proving people wrong. So like I feed on that now.
And you have to use it to whatever you decide to do in the future, because we would obviously expect you to be back out there. And I know it's difficult what has happened. We got a chance. By the way, if you haven't yet, you can go to the Amplified Wrestling YouTube page to watch yesterday's Power Hour and see what happened. As in the main event, Violent Love is no more, because Edward James and Andrew Loveless lost those tag team championships. Unfortunately, not to the Dawn's March, because originally the match was advertised with the Dawn's March and Love. And the Dawn's March we know very well on Sportswire Radio, but actually it was Dennis G introducing the Brooklyn Prodigies to make this a triple threat match. One of the more bizarre instances I've seen of a championship change in a long time in my career on Sportswire Radio. But my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, and we're here with Andrew Loveless. Yeah, I mean, that's some wild stories that you have from
My
years
whole life is
ago.
wild stories.
Well, that's why we wanted to have you on here. But I mean, we'll get to some of that. But I mean, just to kind of close it, you could have easily quit. Back at the young 15-year-old version of you, when you were told not to go out there. And it's kind of funny that you say that, because I think I was like just graduating high school, or right around the time I was graduating high school, and I had for a brief period thought about becoming a wrestler. I never really participated in the backyard. I mean, I'm from New York City, so you can imagine it really isn't much of a backyard wrestling thing. But it was pretty much like, yeah, I went to, if I asked my parents, I'm going to go be a wrestler and go to wrestling school. Growing up in Brooklyn, they would have probably wanted to throw me down the stairs and say, go get a job and get out. So I was like, okay, let me just stick to school. I'll stick to school and go to school. And that was kind of what I did. But, I appreciate that you didn't give up, and it's led you to where you are today. And I have to think that it's going to fuel you to eventually try to get your revenge on your one-time best friend and former tag team partner, Edward James.
Yeah, absolutely. I owe him a couple receipts for costing us the tag team titles. That's for
Well,
sure.
well, speaking of surprises and somebody who wants to comment on that, a man that's been here a couple of times, I'm going to break it that the man is going to be back here next Monday. He's actually going to be here. As a matter of fact, he's going to be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, which you may not actually like, or maybe you do like what he has to say, but his name is Mr. V to the H. And no, he's not talking about Metal Talk Mondays. He says, however, hiya, Loveless. How about that surprise, which we've been talking about the last 15 minutes, that Dennis G comes out and all of a sudden it's a triple threat and you're here without those championships. I mean, so obviously I'm imagining you ain't liking that surprise.
No, not at all. Like I trained for one team.
I
I did not
know.
I did
It was
not anticipate
bizarre.
the whole
It was
team. Yeah.
bizarre. This whole thing. I mean, I don't know if I've said this before. I don't know if I've seen a situation like this. I mean,
I will give credit where credit is due though.
what?
Laying there, trying to collect myself, looking up and seeing that silhouette of Behemoth, that is a big man. He is very intimidating.
Well, those guys, I want to tell you, those guys, obviously, I know them a little bit from a couple of different places. As a matter of fact, one place I actually know them specifically from is my very good buddy, the one and only Jimmy Controversy, his company, Pro Wrestling Venom. The Brooklyn Prodigy have done some work for Jimmy Controversy, and they were actually on his team at the GTS first Pro Wrestling Venom show that they did. It was about 3 weeks ago, and they were actually on that team alongside a couple of my other friends, Angel Santiago, the Puerto Rican Prince, and Gabe Sayers. So, I mean, I know what the Prodigies
I
can do.
like
And
BCS pretty well
you do?
when I
Yeah, well,
can. Yeah, I dig their stuff.
it's funny. I'm meeting as now I say to people, and obviously I want to put it out there. Jimmy Controversy actually endorsed the last Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling show, which was March for a Cure. And obviously yours truly did a few things for it. I'm also going to have an announcement that I'm going to personally make on behalf of the show coming up for Future Shock. And Jimmy, I explained to Jimmy what the show was, and I had actually wanted to see if Jimmy could wrestle on the card. But unfortunately, Jimmy had a scheduling conflict, but he actually endorsed the show. and he felt it was important that he wanted to endorse the show live on Sportswire because of what was being done for little Evangeline, and obviously all the money that was raised and everybody going out there, and it was GTS is. As I tell people, I know Jimmy Controversy. I happen to know the stepdads now, and all the, my friend Gabe Sayers has become a part of GTS, and Mikey Anarchy. People are like, wow, can you get me Grim on Sportswire? I'm like, it was wait, just slow down, work one wrestler at a time. But no, I mean, my point is before I get to more comments, and I'll get to people from the very beginning, the prodigies have been very impressive.
They
But
are.
the facts is that, what do you do now? Are you going into tag team wrestling still? Do you regroup? I mean, I know you've got obviously Edward James eventually in your sights, but where do you go from there from a tag team aspect?
I'm right now. My main goal is Edward James.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it's getting my revenge on him and what he did for costing us the tag team championships.
Well, now it's more like costing you the tag team championship just because he seemed to be pretty fine with it. But, I do have one funny note. I mean, obviously the Dawn's March, you wrestled in the ring, and Chase Wakefield is a guy that I know very, very well. And obviously there's the artist formerly known as Corey Graves. He's now going by, it's Silas Walker. We were talking about this, off the air. But you have a funny Chase Wakefield story of any notes? Because Chase Wakefield is kind of, everybody always has something to say about Chase Wakefield. I mean, everything. I mean, does he weigh
Not really. Like that was my very first. That was my very first time meeting him.
Okay, does he weigh 60 pounds?
Oh yeah, he's super light. Like if you look back at the film,
I did actually. I watched the match twice.
The power bomb, like it from where I was standing when I power bombed him, it felt like he launched out like 6 feet in the air.
It's funny you said that because when I watched you and him in the ring, I was like, were you throwing him around like a sack of potatoes? Was my first thought.
Yeah.
That was pretty much my first thought there. Yeah, he's, it's interesting because I've obviously interviewed a lot of guys who know him, and he's a big part of a lot of different, federations, obviously DBW, certainly also in VTW. And, I ask guys this question, and then they're like, yeah, you meet him and he really looks like 60 pounds, but then he moves in the ring and he actually is kind of strong for his
He's
weight.
very, very tough.
Yeah, that's what
like
guys told me.
He does not get the credit he deserves. That's for sure. Like,
well, I inducted him in my Hall of Fame.
And I know,
but go ahead.
I know a lot of people underestimate him. They're like, "Oh, he's tiny. This is going to be a cakewalk." And that, like, that boy, he's pretty much the modern day version of Spike Dudley.
Yeah, with a lot longer hair.
Yeah.
With a lot longer hair. Yeah, I can see it. That's a clever point. Let me get to Mr. Van Hansen because he says, Violent Love ended the longest tag team championship reign in the Panhandle Revival. I think you definitely know a thing or two about that. It was time for a change. So is it safe to say, was that payback towards you guys?
It could be. Who knows?
Okay.
I don't know. Right. Maybe.
All right, so let me ask you though a follow-up. What did it mean to you to be Amplified Wrestling Tag Team Champions for 9 months?
It was an honor, for sure. Like, I was going through some things, closed doors, that a lot of people don't know about.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And, like, I was still trying to find myself, my self-confidence, finding myself in the ring. And for me and Edward James to be able to win those meant the world to me.
It's tough because all too often I find this, that wrestlers I know, or even people, are going through different things, and you never know what something could do, like winning those tag team championships can do, not only for your career, but even just for your overall well-being and just how you feel about yourself. So let me ask you a follow-up. I know a lot of people still want to talk to you. I'm going to get to people in a second, but how did winning the tag team championships compare to other championships in your career?
That was my very first tag team championship ever. So, like, to me, that was huge. That was very huge because as much as I've studied tag team wrestling in my life, I've always looked up to the Midnight Express.
Oh my God! Yep.
Yeah,
and they're still going out there. Still, they're still going. I'm like, how are they still going?
and some of my peers have even compared me and Edward James and our team to the Midnight Express, which is a huge honor. Like, I'll take that any day of the week.
Oh, listen,
Like,
just to even be like, if somebody said you were a poor man's Midnight Express, I say, oh, thank you very much. The fact that you're even in the same breath, I mean, that's pretty cool.
If I had a quarter of the talent those boys had, like, oh my God, they're the true God's gift to tag team wrestling.
I just heard Jim Cornette talk about them on his show, I think 2 weeks ago, and yeah, they're still out there. In fact, they were. I'm trying to think on what show it was a couple of weeks ago. Was it MLW? It was one of the other shows that was. I think maybe it was the NWA, and they're actually still wrestling. It's crazy to think that.
Them and Rock and Roll Express are still going strong.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that these teams that
it was like last weekend or the weekend before they were working in Ohio.
Yeah, I think I heard that. Somebody told me that. I don't remember who it was. I admit I am sorry to whoever told me, but I did hear that. I was like, wow, they're still going. They're still going.
Yeah. It's impressive, man. Like, I hope that when I get their age, like, I'm still doing this.
I would just hope to be alive.
Well, yeah. There's a few things there. Like,
I ran into a lady it was funny, real quick. I ran into a lady this morning, and I was at the bank, and I hold the door for the lady. The lady had to be, I don't know, maybe 60, 65, and she looked at me, and she didn't know how to open. She looked at the wrong door. Lady was had a blonde moment, and she looked at me and said, I said, yes, I held the door for her. I'm thinking, okay, what did I do? She said, you better hope that you live as long as I live. I'm like, well, ma'am, all right. I hope so. I hope to get there. I mean, I hope to live till tomorrow. But the point is that, they've had an amazing run. And the fact that you looked up to them and then you got to be compared, I think that shows that tag team wrestling was something that maybe you're not done with.
Hopefully not. Like I definitely enjoyed it. It definitely holds a special place in my heart for sure.
I always think that tag team wrestling, when it's done correctly, I think a lot of people don't understand in terms of the ring psychology, what it brings to the table, and also what it does
for a lot different.
Exactly.
A lot different.
Do you want to talk about that for the audience?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So like it's not just one-on-one ego going in, just wrecking one another. It's about strategy and placement and working together as a team on such a different level. Like, tag team wrestling does not get enough credit for what it does for our sport. Like, there's so many great tag teams in the tri-state area. Like, guys like the Main Event out down there around IWC. Those guys are. I don't know why they're not signed to the bigger stages. Like, they are so good.
Well, on your show, you have the Street Stompers. I happen to know those guys very well. And, they're a phenomenal tag team that I've seen up and down kind of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast now. Those guys have really, Richie Blanco and Rob Blade, they've cut their teeth. I mean, there's a lot of great...
I just started doing homework on those guys at the last show. And, man, they are gifted.
The moves... What they do and their finishing move and how they come in the ring. I mean, just what those guys have done. I've got a chance to deep dive and watch a lot of their work. I mean, these guys, they have all the tools.
If they're not tag champs in the next 2 years, oh my God, like that's just that would be a pure travesty because they're so talented. They're so good.
The cream always rises above the crop. Let me, though, get to actually somebody that we just mentioned, and I feel like the bat signal was called for it. The one and only Mr. Chase Wakefield. Andrew gave me one of the craziest moves to never get caught on film.
Yep, true. Yeah, so the Vertebreaker, it's one of the 10 most banned moves in the United States in professional wrestling, believe it or not.
Why is that?
There's a lot of variables to it. You got to be able to you got to be able to time it just right, and also like take care of the guy enough like I'm probably gonna get heat for saying this, but whatever. It,
Well, I would say don't say it. Don't say, because on Sportswire, I
no,
guarantee if you say something, hold that
yeah,
thought. But I'll actually make the comparison. So in a way, it was what the pile driver was like for a while. When the Undertaker had
yeah,
his
yeah,
2 feet
pretty
pile
much.
driver for a while, he actually couldn't do it. So in a way, the
It
version of
is.
the vertebraker, you can't do as much.
Yeah, yeah. It's about timing and angles. Like it's
Uh,
different.
Tucking your
Like
opponent in, I get that. It's
yeah, yeah,
protection,
yeah.
safety.
Angles are the most important key to the move.
Mm.
And like as I was learning that move, I I I reached out to Homicide and I was like, "Hey, if I cut my teeth and I pay my dues enough, will you give me the blessing to be able to use that?"
What
And
did
he's
he
like,
say?
"Yeah, yeah." He
Wow.
gave me the honors. So like I'm one of those ones that like I want to pay homage to guys of the past. Like that's why like if you ever see me doing like single leg crabs, like that's an homage to Lance Storm. And Indian Deathlock, that's an homage to one of my very first seminars was Harley Race,
Oh
who
my
I
goodness, you had Harley Race in a seminar? You have to talk
yeah,
about that
yeah.
for the audience. You have to.
So like
It's a big deal.
yeah, yeah, it was a terrifying deal
Oh, I
at
would
most.
imagine Harley Race. It's Harley freaking Race. I mean, come
Yeah.
on. I mean,
So he was in his wheelchair smoking a cigar in Toledo. And I had maybe 3 months in learning
uh
bumps.
oh, uh oh.
And so like, you get nervous. There's chances of like you not doing something right. It kind of happens because you get the butterflies. Well, off in the distance, I smell the cigar and like I'm allergic to cigarette smoke, so like it makes me cough a little bit. But
Oh
like
wow.
I hear off in the distance, he's like, "Kid, you better do it right. Don't make me get in that ring." And like, if there's ever a moment where it strikes the fear of God into you and makes you want to pee yourself at the same time, that was the moment for me. Like, it was scary.
Oh my
But
goodness, and it's Harley. I mean, it's Harley Race. Let me repeat.
yeah,
This was the man in the 70s and 80s. I mean, this
yeah.
was like, it might have been maybe
He was
Ric
as big
Flair.
as Elvis in the 70s and
Yeah,
80s. To me, anyway.
I was gonna say Ric Flair won Harley Race 1B or 1A, 1B. I mean, it was like, for a
Yeah.
time, and
Hand in
especially,
hand.
and I would say in the Midwest, it was Harley Race over Ric Flair because Harley
Yeah.
Race was a Midwest guy. So in the Midwest, in those territories, Harley Race was kind of like the Northeast version of Bruno San Martino, not in terms of the character, but in terms of their popularity and the fact that you were in the same room with him. Did you get a chance to say anything else to Mr. Race?
I said how much I appreciated his work. Like, I really,
What did
like,
he
he was
say?
one of the
What did
very
he
first
say?
guys I studied. He's like, "Thanks, kid. I appreciate that." And then he just kind of like, "All right, whatever, green bean."
He
But like,
probably, yeah, he reminds me of whatever reason. You ever watch a movie and like there's like this guy who's like a promoter, and well, it could be a music, this from music, a music promoter, kind of like in a dark room almost, and they're
yep,
sitting there with like maybe it's piles of money and a deck of cards and the cigar or the
yeah,
cigars in the pocket pack, and that's kind of to me Harley
yeah,
Race. I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
get killed.
pretty much tenfold. That's Harley.
Boy, I certainly am gonna get killed
He
for it
was tough
before.
though. Like he would humble you. Like I watched one kid. Like he mentally just ate this kid alive in Toledo. Like
Oh
he
my
left this kid in tears. Like I didn't know if this kid was ever going to come back to professional wrestling.
God. Yeah, I've unfortunately in doing this for 4 years, I've heard of stories where, guys have said, well, I was trying to learn and then I had a trainer or somebody said something and then I either gave up altogether or I went back to the backyard. So that's here nor there. I'm not going to out anybody, but let me get to some comments here because we want to certainly dial it back a little bit. Want to say hello to my buddy, Mr. D'Angelo LaFlame, the Resurrection Wrestling Internet Champion, is going to be in the ring tomorrow on St. Patrick's Day. So hopefully, D'Angelo, you have the luck of the Irish. Maybe you'll have some corned beef and cabbage and potatoes on the side if that's
Wash
your
it down with
thing.
some Guinness.
Yeah, I actually don't drink altogether, but yeah, if you want to have the Guinness, have it on me. But D'Angelo's going to be here on his birthday on Wednesday, and good to see you, D'Angelo. Want to say hello to my buddy, Mr. Ethan Sorensen. We're doing great today. I'm speaking with Andrew Loveless. I'm having a great time, and I'm getting a chance to know
Oh,
him. I'm talking the world of wrestling. What more could I be doing other than this? There ain't anything else I can think of. I want to say hello to Drake Golddragon again. I have a question from Andrew. What would be your favorite tag team match that you had in your career? That's a good question. What was your favorite tag team match you had in your career? That's a good question.
the Don's March is definitely probably number one, and then the number two for me would be the Connell brothers in PWX.
Okay, I feel like I've heard that name before. I feel like I heard that name before.
Yeah, they are students of Matt Silks, and they come out
Okay,
of Lewistown, and they're definitely the future of tag team wrestling. Like I see a lot of potential in Ace. DJ, he's pretty much the reincarnation of Jeff Hardy.
oh.
Is the best I can explain it. Like that dude's gonna be like a future spot monkey. I can see it already.
Well, hopefully those. I heard Crowbar say this. It was on Twitter. Say, hopefully, if he takes those bumps, he takes them safely.
Yeah, hopefully. Oof.
Hopefully, because listen,
It's rare if you ever see me on a top rope.
yeah, I know. Watching you in the ring, I would say, yeah, I definitely, would not see that. But that's good that you know what, because you're not going to do something that they always say. What's the old adage? It's kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. I always go by that. If you're a music guy or a wrestling guy, to me the terms are always the same. Never do something that you can't do because you shouldn't do it.
Exactly.
I think I heard Tommy
It's a
Dreamer.
liability.
Yes, I heard
There's a
Tommy
high
Dreamer say
risk of
that.
injuring yourself and injuring whoever you're working with.
You stay within your element. You stay
Yeah,
within who you are. If you once you admit you go out of it, you go out of your comfort zone. All things, listen, as Kiss would say again, Kiss the word, the band, all hell will break loose for you,
if
figuratively and literally.
if you don't do it in training, yeah, don't do it on shows. Plain
That's
and
why.
simple.
That's why we have you here in Sportswire. Want to say hello to my buddy, Mr. Steven Silvestri, who's the general manager of Resurrection Wrestling. He is hopefully getting ready for his show tomorrow. I think Ethan is trying to poke fun at you, but I'm gonna still let him ask this question. I really shouldn't, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I like him. Would you say the barbed wire bat is the most painful object in wrestling? I think he's referring to what happened to you yesterday at Power Hour, which I'm not quite sure why he would kind of, break more in the eyes to you, but that's what he's wanting to do.
No, I've been hit by a lot of things, and yeah, that sucks. But the whole glass tube situation that deathmatch wrestlers do, no. I've been hit by one, and like
I'm so glad you said that because sometimes guys come on sports, we're like, yeah, bring it on to me. And then I'm like, are you sure? Because I know Jimmy Controversy. I know
that's
Mikey
just stupid
Anarchy.
pride, is all that is, in my eyes, anyway. Like they're just trying to do it to get attention, maybe. But like, no, not me. Like picking glass out of my body for the next 5 weeks, no. It was the most uncomfortable situation. I was miserable, hated it.
Well, you would not have liked. I had Mikey Anarchy, who's the GTS quote unquote Intercontinental Champion. He came on my show and he showed for the audience. This was about 2.5 months ago. He turned around, showed his back, and his back literally had so many cuts on it that I
Yeah.
probably could have played connect the dots with it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I,
Even
I
even even if you go to the back after your match and you get glass tweezered out, there's still glass fragments in your body for 4 to 5 weeks until that
I
skin grows up.
I had
Prove
another
that
guy
out.
on. I had another guy on, Matthew Forsaken, who's in my Hall of Fame. He's from Ohio. He wrestled in the IMF show in it was called Winter Clash back in December. He wrestled a hardcore match with one of our favorites here, Omen Black. And
Nice.
actually, after the match, we had him on, I want to say maybe a month and a half ago when we inducted him into the Hall of Fame. He still had the cuts on his back. He still
Yeah.
actually, he turned around, showed us. I'm like, are you all right? I'm like, I asked him because I've known him for a while. I said, you all right? He goes, yeah. He's like, I'm okay. So some guys, they get used to it, but I appreciate that you were honest. And you know what? It ain't for me. So let me get to some
Yeah.
more comments because I don't want, people want to hear you. They don't want to hear me. There's
I,
hard.
I I appreciate the hardcore style, but that's not for me.
No, I appreciate the honesty. There's hard cam footage of it. I'll have to retrieve it from DVG. Speaking of DVG, he's got a far louder voice than me. I mean, what he does is out of this world. DVG
Yeah,
does. By the way, I have to give him a big shout out. Also, I think Violet Love gave me one of my favorite matches in the Independents, and I can't wait to talk about it because Chase is here. By the way, he was actually supposed to. Good news for you. He was actually supposed to be here today, but he gave up his spot for you. He actually, no, literally, I'm telling you, he was
I
actually the
appreciate you.
Bitcoin billionaire Chase Wakefield was actually supposed to be on Sportswire tonight, but he was like, you know what, I can't make it. So we basically filled you in instead because, well, you were the amplified tag team champion before. Obviously, we had you announced on the air. So obviously, we basically filled you in, kind of taking the lineup card in baseball. We penciled you in for Chase Wakefield, but Chase will be in
I'm
your
thankful.
chair. No, I'm thankful you're here, but Chase will be here in 2 weeks, so we'll still get Chase,
I'll
and
be
I'm sure.
watching that one too.
Yeah, he's always, listen. Chase is one of my favorites. I got to be honest, on and off the air, he is one of my favorites. He knows everybody. He knows what's going on. He just, for
Yeah,
whatever reason, Chase Wakefield knows everybody. Chase Wakefield knows what's going. He knows what's going on. Like if there was like independence like overseas, he would know
yeah.
them. I know a lot of the British independents. He'd probably know like the Australian independents. He'd probably know the Canadian independents because everybody knows Chase Wakefield. I can't say everybody loves Chase Wakefield, but his
I
best
study
friend.
that stuff too, so I appreciate guys like that.
And I appreciate him, although he says he's Aaron Jones' best friend, but I'm not quite sure if Aaron Jones necessarily still reciprocates that because I've had Aaron Jones on Sportswire and I didn't get the sense that Aaron Jones sees Chase Wakefield as his best friend. But I'm not going to ask you those questions. But I am going to say if you're on Sportswire Radio and you want to listen to us here, you can do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on our internet radio station, Sportswire Radio, where we actually have DJs that play live music. We have live talk. We have podcasts from all over the world that get played. So if you have something you want to add to the rotation, you have something you want to say, you let us know, and I do it for free of charge. So anybody can be heard on our worldwide radio station. I do that to give back to the community. And if you have something you want to say, you want to have your chance to be heard around the world, we do that here. I've been doing it for almost 4 years, and I love connecting with people all around the world. And we have more coverage tomorrow, as I point out, with Amplified Enterprise Wrestling and Lydia Myers. Something tells me that Mr. V to the H is going to be tuned into that one because Lydia Myers is definitely going to have a lot to say. And I have no doubt that if you're a fan of Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling, you're going to be tuned in. And I want to say hello to one of my buddies out there who's going to be here Thursday night to be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. He is the hardcore king. We call him Hollywood Titan. He's Atomic Titan here, but he is a part of things in Tennessee Backyard Wrestling. He is their only Grand Slam champion. And yes, he does look like that in real life. He does wear those glasses. He does have the trench coat like that, but he's actually one of my buddies. He's one of my very good friends, and I'm always
Speaking of
happy to
glasses,
see him. I did see that, by the way. You did give me the love glasses here for sure. I do appreciate that. But yeah, he's got the glasses. You got the glasses. I'm not going to ask who's got the better glasses, but I am going to certainly say that it's good to be with you. And I wanted to ask you. We were talking about this off there. Speaking of live music, speaking of the internet radio station, stuff like that, you are what's called a hardcore DJ. Now, I'm curious on what that is. What do you do? Because I actually have from time to time a few DJs play on Sportswire Radio here. And I'm curious on what your other role is and how you got involved in that. And maybe just talk about those experiences versus what we see from you in the ring, my friend.
so before wrestling, I used to semi-professionally breakdance.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I
Wow.
was doing that for Red Bull for a little bit,
Wow.
and
Red Bull. Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
that and for the underground scene. And I got tired of the wear and tear on the body. Like I needed some time off and that. And I met like tons of DJs just because of parties and meeting girls and all that crazy stuff. And so one of my peers, he used to spin drum and bass music a lot.
Oh, wow.
So like he moved up to my area out of Pittsburgh, and we hit it off. And his best friend was Facade. So like all three of us were running around together a little bit, and like one night he's like, "Hey, yeah, you want to learn to spin music?" He gave me like this old controller, and I hooked it up to virtual DJ, and I started experimenting. And I was self conscientious. I was like, I don't want nobody to watch me, and so like they gave me like 2 tracks, and like I'm sitting there mixing, and the one day, like I have an open door policy at my house usually. Like if I know you and I trust you, you just walk in, don't even knock. Everything's
Wow.
good.
Okay. You
So
know what?
like
That's confidence.
yeah, so like one day I was mixing, and he walks in, he's like, dude, where did you learn to mix? I was like, oh, is that what I'm doing? So like after that, like he pulled me off to the side, and he's like, hey, here's some notes and that, and I started networking with other DJs and stuff like that, and I started learning the fundamentals the first couple years, and uh then he introduced me to a happy hardcore DJ by the name of DJ Stabby, who is no longer with us,
I'm
but
sorry. I'm
he was
sorry.
one of my peers, and he exposed me to vinyl. So him teaching me vinyl, and then DJ Nick Fury teaching me how to mix digitally and through
And we're not
CDs.
talking about the Nick Fury in wrestling, by the way, for those
No,
that are
no,
listening.
no, no, no,
I
no,
had to say that for the wrestling fans. I wanted to make sure, not that one.
no. But no, they taught me how to be more diverse as an
Okay.
artist, and then I started taking trips up to Brooklyn. That's where
Where,
my
I have to ask you, so where were you in Brooklyn? What places did you
down at
go
the
to?
Port Harbor there.
Okay, well, you were by almost. I'm trying to think. You said by the harbor, so you were probably by downtown Brooklyn, right off
Yeah,
by the Brooklyn Bridge. You were
yeah,
in what in Dumbo. You were in kind of the industrial, kind of where a
yeah,
lot of the clubs are. You were probably
yeah.
were you at St. Vitus?
No, no. I pretty much I went to the industrial warehouse, and then I went up the street to Human Heads to buy vinyl.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly where you are. Okay,
Yeah.
totally know exactly where you are. Yeah,
So
you
like
were
I ran
definitely.
around that little area a lot, and I started networking with like Paul Van Dyke and Tommy Trash and like the world renowned DJs,
Wow.
and so like I started giving them free CDs. I went up there. I would go up with like 50 blank CDs, like a big stack, and business cards, and just hand them out for free. Just I knew I was taking money losses at this point, but whatever. Like just to get myself out there, and just get people to listen to my work, and see what I can learn off of. It's the same thing with wrestling. Is like you go in, you learn, you study tape, you send your tape out to your peers, try to learn and grow that way. So
Well,
like
I got a couple questions on that. I mean, there's a lot I want to ask you. I realize I only got so much time with you, but my first question is this is kind of a Captain Obvious one, but now I don't know. I can say it. Van Hansen is the man that owns Amplified Wrestling. Kid Mike owns Enterprise Wrestling. Now I don't know what Mr. Hansen or Mr. Mike would want me to ask this, but have they ever asked you to, I don't know, maybe help with the music selection at these shows or DJ anything? I mean, I know you obviously wrestling is a part of Violent Love, but have you ever, whether it's even by them or anybody else that you've worked for, have they ever asked you to, I don't know, DJ a show if that's some such a thing? I mean, I just
no,
thought
but
that
like I'd be open to that. Like honestly, that'd be one thing that's on
I
my
thought
bucket
that'd be
list. Is
kind of
I
interesting. Yeah, I thought that'd be kind of, I know what the wrestling crowd's not the
But
same as the club
the
crowd.
only thing with that is like my setup is a $22,000 setup.
Oh, you know what? I don't know if I would. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to bring 22 grand worth of setup with me
I don't mind it. Like I can spend happy hardcore trance, break beats, all that stuff. And like I've been trying for the last 8 years to break the world record for the most tracks played in an hour set.
Oh my god!
And
What's the record? What is the record for that?
170. There's a British DJ that owns the record. And I've been averaging around like 150. The most I've been able to hit is 156. And
I gotta ask my I have two DJs. I have DJ 80 and I have another guy, Dale, but Dale hasn't been on Sportswire in almost 2 years. 80 comes on from time to time. I'm gonna ask 80 about that because 80, those guys are
mathematically, I
overseas.
have it figured down to a science that I
Okay.
have to be able to hit a new track every 15 seconds. But the software sometimes glitches. So with that, you're getting, if you're lucky, 30 to 45 seconds. And then depending on how the track's produced, you have to worry about breakdowns and like being able to like boom, 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 boom.
But
Like
170 tracks at once. How is that possible? I mean, I think That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
the world record.
Like you would
175.
need at least 4 to 6 players in order to do it. And I think if you could
How
get
many do you have?
somebody,
How many do you have
uh,
currently?
I have,
Oh wow.
I have those, and with those, here's a better view for you.
No, don't touch them. They're yours. Oh wow. Yeah, no, I get it. I see it.
But those are 4 deck players, so this way I can operate my two tracks at the same time, and then I'll load my bottom 2 with scratch samples, so I could scratch on top of things, and then my left my channel 3 I use to be like, okay, now you're listening to the one and only DJ Dirty White Boy in the mix. Boom, and I'll mix that over
Oh,
top
that
of
sounds
both those
exactly
things.
like what we have on Sportswire. They go, he says it's DJ 80 in the mix. He goes, this is
Yeah,
DJ
yeah,
80 in the mix. And it used to be DJ Dale on the sport. We
yeah.
were sport there, but like, wow, what a small world.
Yeah, you can get little drops like that, and sometimes sound effects like sirens and stuff that you can mix
Yes,
to like build up
yes.
the energy and the pulse of things. Like, and that's the beauty of pro wrestling is, to me, in my perspective, this is a lot like pro wrestling. It's a timing factor and how things come together and the psychology aspect of of, of certain
I,
tracks
you
are
know,
have like
you
certain
got me
cues.
really interested right now. I don't know if I should ask this question to you. I'm going to ask it to you. I mean, what would you rather be more successful in, wrestling or DJ? Because you told me something that's really fascinating. You spent $22,000. It's worth $22,000 worth of equipment, which means like you're a serious musician. I know that because my brother plays the drums, my mother sings. When my father was alive, he tried to play every instrument there was. And there was a time that, I was playing the keyboards, I was playing the bass, but really, this is the only instrument I should be playing at this point, these introductions. But that's a joke. But the point is that you have something that you're a serious musician. Now, you've been a very successful wrestler. There's no doubt about it. You've been trained by Homicide. You've been up and down the Pennsylvania area. You obviously know a lot of people in the scene. You've been around Enterprise and Amplified for a while, but you're a serious musician who's basically been up and down the East Coast with all that equipment. I mean, what would you rather break bigger in? I just thought that'd be kind of
Like with
interesting to
this,
ask.
I've traveled internationally. I've DJ'd in France. I've
Oh
DJ'd in
wow.
Spain. Like I'm like Beatle famous over in Spain, which is really weird.
Are you
Like
on
they love.
SoundCloud?
No, I don't believe in SoundCloud. I do not support SoundCloud in any sort of way.
Really? Because a lot of DJs are on either Mixcloud or SoundCloud. That's why I was wondering, like, are you on like
I
everybody else?
used to have Mixcloud,
Okay.
but they really suppress the artist a lot.
Yeah, I've heard that. Boy, what a small world. Well, I think this is interesting. So you've been to France, you've been to, you said Spain. I would
Yeah.
imagine you've been to Canada, right?
No, not yet. I would
Really?
love to go to Canada.
Because I thought
But
automatically Montreal with the hardcore scene there, with all like the club music, I would have thought automatically you would have been in
Toledo
Montreal.
has the most amazing club scene.
Which
Or
one?
Toronto.
Yeah, I've
Toronto.
heard that too. I actually
Yeah.
have another small world, a buddy of mine, Erzin Krivka, who I know is not listening to this, but he was a DJ, or he is kind of a part-time DJ. He lives in Manhattan. Erzin Krivka. I got to ask him about you. What's your DJ name?
I go by Dirty White Boy. So like anytime you guys see this tattoo,
All right, I'm gonna ask around about you. I have a feeling that somebody's gonna say I know you. You have for whatever reason. I have a feeling that I'm gonna ask around people. I'm gonna get back to you and say, wow, I know that I got you in here through wrestling, but something tells me here, like my listeners or friends of mine who don't listen to sports, I like, wow, you had him on. What a small world. So, I mean, that's why I ask you. I mean, you really are a big deal. So what's the differences between wrestling and DJing? Is there differences, similarities? I find that so fascinating.
to me, DJing is more therapeutic. To
Okay.
me, it's what words can't say, music speaks.
Oh, interesting.
So it's spirituality to me. So like I've always looked up to guys like Wolfgang Gardner.
Okay.
Like he was a good guy. Tommy Trash is the one that designed
I heard the name. I definitely heard that
my
name.
DJ name. He's worked with Tiesto a lot.
I know TS
But
though. Definitely know
yeah,
TS though.
yeah, I figured like he's all over the media. Him and Deadmau5 a lot. And I really like a lot of those guys' work. Lately, it's been Cash Cash. Um, my friends W and W, they're killing it. Like they're really really good. I really like them. But if I'm really fired up and I'm in the mood, like I play happy hardcore for my buddy Stabby. Like that's the best way I honor him. But like for success wise, to get back to your question,
Yeah.
I'd rather have success in pro wrestling.
Really? Why? I'm just curious. It doesn't,
Just because of the sentimental connection with my brother.
right? Because we spoke about what wrestling connected you guys in the
Yeah.
traveling and the
And my great grandmother, she grew up like exposing us to a lot of pro wrestling too. Like she was a
Oh,
huge fan of Lex Luger and all those baby faces.
oh, sure.
Me, I connected with guys like Ravishing Rick Rude. Like
Really?
like being young, I at first it wasn't too much of a connection, but it was like, okay, this guy's egocentric and he was like flexing and like all this stuff, and it just big attention getters versus the cheesy side of things. But she was like, oh, that Lex Luger, he's so handsome and that, and me, I would just pick the bad guys just to bust their chops. But then as I got older, I was like, man, Rick Rude, he is a gift to pro wrestling. Like he was so good, but like he was so underutilized.
Yeah,
Like
I think the problem with Rick Rude was he got hurt and it kind of cut his run as a
yeah,
wrestler. And then he left and then he came back. And obviously, he's famous for being the only person in history to be on Nitro and Raw on the same day because Raw was taped,
yep,
Nitro was live. And he actually worked for WWF, WCW, ECW, actually that same week. So it's even a little more of a
yeah,
trivial
yeah. I
note.
remember that week. That was a wild week.
Yeah, he actually worked for all three companies in the same week because ECW, he was doing some work for them while actually being a part of D-Generation X. And on top of that, he went to WCW. But yeah, Rick Rude, his run, I think it gets underappreciated because it really was a short run in terms of him being maybe a guy that you'd say his WWF run was what 3.5 years, goes over to WCW, and then he's really 3 years there, and then he gets hurt. Then he can't wrestle
But,
again, and then that's
but
it.
could you imagine of if back in the day, if WWF would have pulled the trigger and had him in the world title hunt, or even better yet, him at least have one run with the WWF title.
Yeah, I mean, he did beat Warrior, and I think he was Warrior's first loss. But yeah, in terms of
Yeah,
him being a top guy, again, one of those guys that was just on the outside, wasn't quite a main eventer in WWF. WCW, he did get the quote unquote international world title. He
yeah,
beat
yeah.
Sting, but it was, yeah, I think it's just a what if, unfortunately. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, but the
That's
terms
also
of
the
his,
beauty of pro wrestling is the what ifs.
yeah, there's a
The,
lot of what ifs, a lot of what
then,
ifs.
then you start dreaming of like, okay, what about this scenario or this match? Like it's exciting to me.
Well, let me ask you this, and we're here again with the one and only Andrew Loveless. If you want to see some of his work, check him out here on all these platforms, and also follow our friends over at Amplified and Enterprise Wrestling on Amplified and Enterprise Wrestling on Facebook. Also, Power Hour is on YouTube. And by the way, I have got a chance to watch the first 3 Power Hour shows, and they are fantastic. I love that dan 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 dan, and I kind of love that. Though it was kind of lacking some of the commentary this week, but I'll give a pass to Van Hansen because he was really overloaded, it seemed, with work, and I'm not going to really, bust the guy's balls for not having any commentary. But I loved, by the way, this week's show because you were on there and a whole bunch of other great talent were on these first 3 shows. And go check them
He
out.
does great work.
Oh, Van Hansen, if we're going to just break the fourth wall for a second, Van Hansen is the man. In fact, Van Hansen is so much a man that yours truly, before this show coming up on March 30th, I want to actually make this on the record. I want to go on the record again as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters, the Reverend Tom Bryce. I am actually going to purchase one ticket this upcoming show at Future Shock. And I'm in New York City, so I'm unfortunately not going to be able to go, but I want one person to be able to go so they can experience what Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling has to offer in Future Shock. So if you're out there, I'm going to make sure that Mr. Hansen gets my ticket, and I'm going to make sure that somebody that wouldn't have an opportunity otherwise can get a chance to experience pro wrestling and also experience the term All Wrestling Matters with Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling. So I want that on the record. And I want to thank everybody, yourself included, in the locker room for all they do here for this great sport. So I want to ask you one more question, though, on the DJ. Do guys in the locker room who may or may not be fans of, let's say, club music or house, I don't know what, I know Chase Wakefield might actually be a little bit more in your lane than some of the other guys, but do guys ever ask you, hey, would you DJ my show, or ask you questions about it? Do guys in the locker rooms you share know about this?
Well, they know that I do it. Like, I'm not forceful and be like, hey, listen to my music. Like,
No,
no,
I wouldn't think that, but I would think, is there like, guys talk? I mean, and
yeah. So ironically, last night I was on the phone with Steve Steele,
oh, okay.
and so like I was talking to him, checking in with him, and he's like, hey, can you? He was doing like kind of the live video thing through Facebook. He's like, hey, play me something. I was like, okay, challenge accepted. So I queued up some break beats, and I played like 30-minute break beat set for him and his old lady.
Oh, wow.
But like, I'm open to play anywhere, anytime, anywhere.
Well, I'll tell you what, because we actually have had live DJs. Anytime you just, for whatever reason, wanted to release some pressure and you wanted to go live on our internet radio station, you're welcome anytime. I'll set you up. If, again, you're a busy man, I know you got places all over the world to go to, wrestling matches to go wrestle, but if you ever wanted to, I would be more than happy to have you heard on the radio and play music, because I actually do get requests, people to say, oh, Tom, where's the DJs? So I do get them from time to time. So I thought that was fun. But let me ask you, well, you just let me know and we'll make it happen. But, let me ask you, though, coming back to wrestling for the second half of the show here. Now, I'm always curious, and I ask this question a lot to people that have come on here for the first time, and we're still ways to go in the year of 2024, although time to me is flying, because I remember when my first guest on January 1st was Jackson Sabre, and you're here with us on March the 16th, and I've had about like 85 guests since then, literally, just about 85 guests. Yeah. Give or take. And I'm curious, and what are your goals this year in wrestling for 2024?
I want to wrestle everybody. I want to continue learning, growing as a talent. After I take care of this Edward James situation, like, which that's never going to slip my mind until I get my payback on that. But I'd like to pursue after the Livewire title.
Oh, you know what? That's funny, because the Livewire title, interesting, right? Because, that sounds like the guy that came onto Sportswire Radio less than 2 weeks ago, Sugar Dan Stofko. Now, I'm sure you've gotten a chance to get to know him. Now, you've obviously been this veteran, right? You've been paying your dues in this sport, right, Andrew Loveless? You've obviously been working hard, and you've obviously been out there.
You never stop paying dues in this sport, ever.
Oh, for sure, 100%. But the point is that you've obviously been doing that for a long time. And this guy, Sugar Dan Stofko, literally walked off a baseball diamond and is now a champion. I mean, for you, a respected veteran, a man that, as you put it correctly, you've been paying your dues and still paying your dues. Whereas, this guy, that was a baseball player and, had, for what it was, the career he had in the world of college baseball, decided, kind of like a lot of these other guys, that, well, if I couldn't make it in baseball or football or basketball, I'm going to become a wrestler. And he's got certainly a different personality than you. And I find that very fascinating that you would want to go after Mr. Stofko in that championship, especially because of maybe the major differences between how you and him go about things.
Yeah. He's very talented. That's for
no
sure.
question about it. Listen, I mean, the guy's got the look. He's got the ability. He certainly can talk. He conducts himself a certain way. And, we know his background. He was a college baseball player, had a little bit of success on the diamond, had some injuries that maybe took away what could have been more of his career, had some offers to continue to play in college, but he decided to be a wrestler, and that's why he's here. And, you might want to take that title away from him.
Well, yeah, that's what we're all here for is wins and titles, aren't we? But no,
I would
like
hope so. Although some people in wrestling say, "Oh, well, a title's a prop."
a lot of people see outside individuals coming into the sport as a bad thing.
Yeah.
I
What do you think on that? What do you say?
like people give slack to guys like probably him, guys like Logan Paul and so forth, but like it grows outside eyes on the product. Like
Yes, but you're a respected veteran. You're a guy that's been here a while. You talked about the fact that 20 plus years ago, you were 15 years old with your brother
yes,
driving around. You talked about the fact you were setting up rings. You talked about the fact you had that seminar with Harley Race. You've talked about the fact that you've been up and down this scene. You have been in almost all the independents that there could be in the Pennsylvania area. And this guy, again, I love Dan Stufko. He was here on Sportswire Radio. I had a lot of fun with him. But objectively speaking, he just literally walked off a baseball diamond and won a championship. I mean, that's just an objective point. I'm not knocking Dan. I'm not
right.
knocking him. I'm just saying that he literally walked off the baseball diamond. Kind of like in baseball, you have a walk-off now. They call it a walk-off when you win. He literally walked off and now became a champion. I mean, he walked off to winning a title, and it's a different path than the one that you took. I'm just saying.
Everybody's path is different in this sport.
Fair,
So
touche.
also all it really takes is a 3 count. So like who knows what the variables are? Like the guy he was versing, maybe it was an off night. Maybe he got lucky. Maybe 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 Dan ended up getting. Maybe he's got more hidden talent that we haven't discovered yet, too.
But he's only had a handful of matches in his career. I mean, you've had
Right.
a lot more matches. I mean,
But that's what I'm saying, though, is like he's still new. We don't know.
Absolutely.
We don't know what he has in that hand of his.
Would you say that makes him far more vulnerable than as a champion for somebody like you to pick him off?
No, I think it's more of a challenge for us boys that have been paying our dues. Like if anything, because like we don't know what that man's capable of. That's
True.
exciting, but also dangerous in the ring.
Oh, listen, and I would love to see it. I'm going to be straight up. I love what you do in the ring, and I enjoyed yesterday's match, although I still don't know why Dennis G was able to insert the Brooklyn Prodigies in the match. I still would love to know how that's possible. I'm going to ask Van Hansen that question, though. Don't you worry. I'm going to ask him that next Monday for you. I'm going to ask Mr. Hansen how is that possible and see if he gives me an answer. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But I want to at least try and ask. But I would love to see the match, though, between you and Dan Stufko. I think Sugar Dan Stufko can talk about all the different things he is, but until he faces the be-all, you're the be-all. You're literally the be-all. He can't be Sugar Dan. He can't be, the guy that is going to almost be the Logan Paul of Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling, you might say.
Besides him, Eric Black is another one that I want to
go. Ooh.
I've had my eyes on him for over a year.
Him. Oh boy, that's a Donnybrook between you and him. That's a Donnybrook.
He's a hell of a talent.
Oh man.
And me and him, we've crossed paths in the locker room a few times.
And
he's interesting.
Without saying too much, I mean, how did that make you feel, sharing or crossing paths with him in the locker room?
He's talented. I'm not going to knock the man. Like he's talented.
No.
And in my world, it's iron sharpens iron. Like, how do you get better? You challenge guys that you test yourself against guys that you think are better than you, and that's the best way to do it is stepping up and challenging guys like that.
Fair. No, I think that Eric Black and you would be a match that I think a lot of people would want to see. I think a lot of people would want to see you and Sugar Dan Stufko. I think that there's a lot of possibilities aside from Edward James, of course.
Outside of the company, I have one dream match that I would love to do, but he just got signed to NWA, so I got to wait my time.
Okay, tell us who though.
Spencer Slade.
Oh, okay. I heard the name. Okay, well, you know what? Yeah, that'll be a real It'd be a banger, as they would say in the UK. Well, you're a hardcore guy. You've probably heard banger all the time, and
Oh
DJing.
yeah, I've heard it in DJ. Yeah,
But that would
yeah,
be a great match I would love to see you wrestle him.
yeah.
I would love to see
I
that.
just, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to I want to test myself against everybody I can and continue to grow and and build on who I am in the ring.
You know,
Like,
you yeah, go ahead.
but
You were saying.
but yeah, those are like three of the guys that I have my eyes on.
That's a pretty good list. What, you answered that question really in depthly here. That's why we're having a lot of fun here with Mr. Andrew Loveless. I have no doubt that he is going to put some violent love on somebody here, and he ain't going to be loveless much longer in the ring because he's coming for some opponents. He might be getting gold, singles gold this time, and that's why you're going to want to follow him on all platforms. We're here for about half hour, so and I'll be here at 11 o'clock back with Drake Golddragon of Resurrection Wrestling. Drake Golddragon has requested a microphone, so we'll see how my voice does then. Maybe when Andrew asked me the question at the beginning of the show, I'll give him the answer after the second show I'm on later tonight. And let's see how my voice is feeling. But I have Lydia Myers also tomorrow night, and that's going to be a real interesting conversation because I don't know what to expect. I have no idea what to expect with Lydia Myers.
What do you think about the four-way match that was announced for her?
Well, apparently we're supposed to know, a little more about that on Sportswire tomorrow. So I'm really curious a little bit about, what Miss Myers thinks, or Mrs. Myers, or maybe both. I don't know. I'm not going to get on
I
her
saw
bad side.
Pitch Chick ended up getting added to it, and I'm wondering who the other two are going to be.
Well,
Either way, she's got a work cut out for her.
Well, I'm going to be asking her a lot about it. I mean, I'm going to be asking her probably at least 20 minutes worth of questions. I mean, knowing how these paces on Sportswire go, I mean, I'm going to ask her a lot about it, and I hope she gives me an answer. I don't know what else I could say. I mean, I'm going to ask the questions. I don't know what answer I'm going to get, but she's going to, either way, it's going to be her fate that's decided, not mine. I don't know. But yeah, I'm excited about Lydia Myers. I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation because of just where her situation is in this stipulation. And on top of that, where she's been on these storylines. And certainly, Mr. Hansen and Mr. Mike, they've certainly had their issues with Lydia Myers.
Yeah, true.
They've had their issues, and I think that I can get to ask her a lot about now what she thinks about them because they've been on here and they've said a lot about Lydia Myers, but now we get to have Lydia Myers tomorrow, and she gets to air her thoughts on Kid Mike and Van Hansen. So now we get a chance to hear what she has to say on.
It's going to be exciting. I can't wait to tune in.
I can't wait to be here because I love covering Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling, and that's why I want people to go support them in all their platforms, and of course because they induct yours truly in the Hall of Fame. So if you're not supporting them at this point, your head needs to be examined. So you better go and follow them on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, go like them. Go give them a follow.
Do it all and support Andrew while we're at it. But Andrew, I wanted to ask you,
independent wrestling at all costs.
I could not agree with you more. I've been doing that for 4 years around the world. We've been giving people that opportunity. I'm always about all wrestling matters. You mentioned the name Homicide, and I have to bring him up because years ago, you're gonna chuckle. I'm a newspaper carrier, and as a kid, when I was a kid, much younger, there was a guy that you actually was kind of known here on Staten Island. He had a public access television show, and he was kind of a wrestler. His name was Tracy White. I used to call him Mr. White because every time I would be on my route and I would catch him in front of his garage, I would try to pepper him with wrestling questions. And the reason this comes up to you, Mr. Andrew Loveless, because at the time, this had to have been 20 years ago, just when Homicide had just broken TNA, he used to always talk about the fact that he was friends with Homicide. And he'd always talk about the fact that he would talk to him on the phone, and he'd always ask him questions, and he was a big deal, and Homicide was kind of known here because we have some independent wrestling in the greater New York City area, not to the degree I think we have it in some other places. But I have to ask you, because I'm thinking about my old friend, Mr. Tracy White himself. Talk to me about learning from the one and only Homicide.
It was interesting, for sure. Yeah. Like, oh, man. More so it's after training the stories that, oh, man, wild times. Like that's how I started discovering some of the New York scene and the Philadelphia scene.
He was a big part of it. I just told you. I confirmed it
Yeah,
for you. He was a
yeah,
big part of it.
yeah, yeah. It was good times. Like he helped me. He tried to help me understand match building a little bit, and like I just was not getting it. Young kid
Fine.
with ADHD. It's hard to focus sometimes, and then trying to like find yourself and figure out what moves work best for you. Also, the time frame. It's just system overload when you first start out because you're like, oh, how am I going to do this? Like, I need to find myself and who I am as an individual and how I work, how I move in the ring. All those little nuances. Like, it's different. And then, like, he'd just be like, at the end of the day, he would always, like, pull me off the side and be like, kid, you're super white and it's something different.
I could
Like,
see him saying that.
yeah,
Actually, because of Mr. White, ironically white,
yeah,
Mr. White, but I could actually see Homicide saying that from what I know of Homicide. So yeah, I could
yeah.
see him saying that.
There'd be times where he'd be like, yo, Cracker, when you get a tan? I'd be like, I don't know. Never gonna
Yeah,
happen because I get sunburned and then just disappear.
yeah.
So
That I totally, from what I know from Mr. White, yeah, I could see him saying that too.
and
But the
then there
fact
was
he had that much success, though, and I'm sure you soaked up all his knowledge. I'm sure you tried,
try.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just did a seminar with his tag partner Hernandez a few months
Yeah,
ago.
I think I heard this on, I want to say either it was Jeff Jarrett's podcast or it was maybe Jim Cornette's, that Hernandez has been like all over the place recently in the independents again. He's been like all over the place, Hercules. I never got how he didn't really break bigger than what he was, though. I know he was big in TNA, but I just thought with the look he had, he
He
would
had
have
a great
maybe.
look.
What's
Very
that?
great look. He had a
He
really
had a
good
great look.
look.
He had a great look, and I don't know why he wasn't as why he was bigger than he should have been. I know he was in TNA for a while. He had success, but I just would have thought he would have
I think injuries is what kind of clipped him down a little bit.
probably.
Which
It's a
I hate to
bummer.
see it. I hate to see it for anybody, honestly.
Oh, for
But
sure, for
but,
sure.
but this line of work, it's going to happen. Like prime
Yeah.
example, I broke my back twice just to get into the sport.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Yeah.
my buddy the Tribal Cheese, who's I'm gonna say it because he doesn't mind. He's 42, and all he does is every few months think about retirement. He talks, he's a big deal in the British independents. He's one of the probably biggest drawn independent. Right, he's one of the most. I would say he can sell 50 tickets on his own when he goes on a show. He's just got that big of an attraction. But he's always like, Tom, how much longer do I have left? I'm like, no. You're the Tribal Cheese. Keep going. You're the Tribal Cheese. But injuries in this sport, it
It's
sucks.
going to happen.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks.
British wrestling is such a beautiful thing.
Oh,
Like
tell me about it.
they focus on the fundamentals in chain wrestling. Like
Yes.
it's a full blown art. But the funny thing is, American style, we target all the left side of the body. Over there,
Yes.
they adapt a lot.
Well, because that's from the world of sport. The world of sport there, that was from, I don't want to say too much, but for what I know, but Marty Jones, who's a big deal there, who wrestled guys like Bret Hart. He wrestled guys like the British Bulldog. Obviously, the Bulldogs came over here, and he's a guy I've had one actual conversation with, and actually I've actually spoke to Marty Jones. He's like a living legend, but all the guys really where they learn is that like that chain wrestling, that kind of slow prying, methodical pace, that all comes from those World of Sport days. Lee
Johnny
Collins,
Johnny
Giant
Gargano
Haystack.
told me to always study Johnny Saint from
Yes,
over there.
yes. Yep.
Yeah,
Giant Haystacks is the other name. Everybody talks about Giant Haystacks. Giant Haystack is like every wrestler that is like over the age of 32 in the UK. They all say Giant Haystack just because of who he was. He was kind of like their attraction, more or less.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
good try, pretty much. But so obviously you learn from Homicide. And he's obviously somebody that we speak of, but we also have a seminar, or not a seminar, but on the 30th we have another guy from Ring of Honor that's going to be on our show. And, I was wondering what you thought about that. And, how big is that for Enterprise and Amplified to be, with the Beer City Bruiser? I think that's a pretty cool thing that we're going to see somebody that's been on, major TV, especially for those that are in the Pennsylvania area. Ring of Honor's bread and butter was on Sinclair Television, all those little syndicates out there in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, West Virginia. And talk about how big that is to be on the bill with the Beer City Bruiser.
Ring of Honor holds a special place in my heart just for the wrestling. Beer City Bruiser, he reminds me a lot of like the old school 70s style wrestlers. Big, smash mouth in your face. And just watching the tag team stuff that he did in Ring of Honor was really awesome. So to be able to go to a seminar from him and to be able to get education from one of your peers that made it to one of the TV style, like that's well worth investing in yourself. So if you haven't signed up for that, like it's a golden opportunity. Don't miss out. Go there. Make sure you take a tablet, a pen, pencil, whatever you got to do to take notes. Like it's not frowned upon in seminars, that's for sure. Because I show up for multiple seminars. Like I see people that don't even have tablets and stuff, not taking notes. They're just there trying to take it in osmosis. Me, I'm logging sheets.
It's funny you said that. I'm actually gonna prove you right now why you're 100% right. When I do these shows, I'm gonna prove your point. Here you go.
Exactly.
When I do these shows,
because they're going a mile a minute, but like also like you're trying to take it all in, and
you can't take it all in if you're not kind of having muscle memory. The point of
taking it by note, you can go back, resurface all that, and relearn it all again.
You know what? You hit the nail on the head, and I hope that guys that are going to be there on the 30th go out there, not just take a picture and hi, I saw you, Mr. Bruiser. No, talk about those things that I would imagine what you might want to learn most for, the psychology, maybe ring technique, knowing where the camera is, knowing, when to kind of maybe come in on a spot, different things like that. Yep. That's stuff that's going to help you go far, whether it's an Enterprise, Amplified, or anywhere else you go. That's why I think that it's a big deal to have a guy like that that's been on a major brand, a major TV. He knows things that I'm not going to know, but he's going to be able to
tell anybody that if you love this sport and you're in this sport, there's nothing wrong with branching out. Like, yes, you might have a coach or a certain spot, but like if that coach impedes upon you branching out to learn more through seminars and stuff, like you might want to like look into a better place to train at that point, because the more education is key. Education is everything.
Absolutely. No, I could not agree with you more.
Like there's nothing wrong with like anytime you see a seminar, sign up for it. Like even if it's something not that you can use right now, maybe in 5 years when you start getting more experience, more education, it might be something that you could adapt into the new version of you.
Yeah, no, I think that having him is big in so many ways for all of the talent. So make sure that you're prepared. Make sure that you're going to be able to get everything you need necessary to help you in your career and your journey. Because I have a feeling that Andrew Loveless is going to do that. And he's not going to be Loveless much longer. And he's going to add some
violent. I'm one of the first guys that signed up for that seminar. And then,
really?
Yeah, and in 2 weeks' time, then I'm going to Gary Pitbull, Wolf's seminar.
What's funny you said that. Pitbull Gary Wolf, the man that Jimmy Controversy wrestled, I want to say twice he wrestled Gary Wolf. Another guy that's he's still going. I mean, another guy that in the ECW heyday, I mean, the Pitbulls were one of the greatest tag teams. I think he was the TV champion. He was a tag team champion. And,
imagine the amount of knowledge that man holds.
I was going to say the same thing.
Why wouldn't you pay $25, $30, $40 for a seminar when you have somebody right there that has all the tools, all the education to try to steer you in the right direction and help mold you to becoming a better version of yourself.
Especially a guy that was on ECW TV. I love
Yeah,
Ring of Honor, and I love what they've added to the sport in the past 20 years. But ECW is certainly sentimental for a lot of reasons in terms of what they did for the sport. So the fact you have a guy that was a major part of that company's success in their heyday, to be in a room with him. Listen, I'll be straight up. I'd pay $100. I'd pay $200 to hear what he has to say, because I would think that that's the kind of guy that's going to help me go places. So I would, to me, $20, $30. I don't know what the figures are exactly. It's not my business, but I would say I'd pay tenfold, because his knowledge is going to be worth times infinity what he's going to do to
exactly.
help you in your career. Home run there.
Exactly. Like what Danny Cage told me on day one of going out to the Monster Factory. You have to invest in yourself before others can invest in you. So that be in gear, looking professional, in seminars, so this way you can get more education. Like those are two of the most important tools in our craft.
I couldn't agree more on that. I do believe in fact, Jimmy Hart said this. I think Eric Bischoff quoted this, that Jimmy Hart was always a believer in how you looked in ring gear. He was all about the ring gear and the colors. And I think that if you're going to go out there, whether it's live on a show or on pre-recorded, TV or YouTube, whatever it is, that's a big part of it. You mentioned the Monster Factory before I get to a few more things. Now, for those that are here locally in the area, the Monster Factory is a big deal for a few reasons. Number one, because the Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow, came from. And I know this because as a kid, I always heard about Bam Bam Bigelow. And Vince
Yeah,
McMahon or whoever it was that was in the company he worked for would say, and Bam Bam Bigelow came from the Monster Factory. And obviously the Monster Factory is a big deal. It's in Asbury Park, New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. And
yes.
and what was your experiences with
Or no,
being in the Monster Factory?
the Monster Factory is in Paulsboro, New Jersey.
Okay, Paul's
And,
gonna do. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Like it's awesome. Like at first, like I remember I was working a pizza joint, and as soon as I get done, I would drive 5.5 hours one way to go
Oh
all the
wow,
way out there. And
wow.
I don't believe in credit cards, so like I would drive out there, get there at 10 o'clock at night, and as soon as some of the classes were ending, other people would stay and help teach me some things.
Oh
And
wow.
then so like they would break it down into cycles. Like you would have two different groups. One would work ring, the other one would work promos and work gorilla and stuff like that. And then when that was done, they would pull the swap, and you would log anywhere between 8 to 10 hours in
Oh wow.
training. Like
Wow.
it's awesome. They give you all the tools that you need to be the best professional wrestler. And
Wow.
like it makes so much sense why guys like Bam Bam Bigelow was such a big he was probably the best big man in our sport. And
Well,
then
Bret Hart said that he was the best big man he ever worked
there
with.
you go. Yeah, like he's awesome. And then you got guys like Sheamus that came out of there as well. Chris Candido. Like Chris
Yeah,
Candido
God rest
was
his soul. Yeah.
one of the best workhorses. Like I got a chance to meet him, and he was awesome. What a great dude! Like I miss
Wow.
that dude. Uh,
Yeah, he's a guy that was underappreciated, really underappreciated guy.
when
That
I was out there, my camp it was Falaba. When he was like right before he went to TNA, there was Damian Priest, Matt Riddle. Um, oh God, those are pretty much the three big ones that I can remember
Well, you got
now.
Riddle and Priest. People are gonna be like, okay, yeah, Riddle and
Yeah,
Priest, Riddle and Priest.
yeah.
Wow, Riddle and Priest. Did you know then when you were with them that they were going to be where they are or where they were? Do you know when you see
Yeah,
these guys?
yeah, Priest. I knew it was just a matter of time. That guy was a full workhorse. Like when you first seen him, like have you seen the early stages of like the body photos that were going
Yes.
around?
Oh, I did. I saw his. It was during COVID. I saw the documentary they did on him, and they showed like how he transformed. Yes, I did. As a matter of
Yeah,
fact.
like when he got to the Monster Factory, he was putting in so much work, so much work. Like if you guys could pull back the door and see, like you would question yourself and be like, man, there's no way. Like man, just looking at it, I would be blown up and tired just watching this guy. He's like, "Oh, just keep going. We'll just keep going." I'm like, "I'm about to have an asthma attack, bud. Like, you got to give me a minute and get some water."
Yeah,
Matt
he just.
Riddle, Matt
Oh,
Riddle was a fun one though to hang around.
Oh, well, actually, speaking of Matt Riddle, the Tribal Cheese actually, he's very well known. We have somebody here from the UK. It's a very, very close friend of mine who's, we mentioned, is a really big deal in British independent wrestling. And he gets the chance to meet a lot of the celebrities. He does security, he does different things. And he hung out with Matt Riddle, and he told me some things off the air I can't repeat about Matt Riddle. So I'm sure that probably might match some of the things you've heard about Matt Riddle, or maybe he knows
Or
more of
things
it
I've
recently.
experienced.
There you
Well,
go. I was gonna
we can
say.
talk after the camera's cut.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, that'd be safe, especially my week on Sportswire. Yeah, I could probably tell you a few things about Matt Riddle off the air about that. But yeah, definitely, I could see all those experiences here. But in the interest of time, I want to ask you a few things. I want to come back to Enterprise and Amplified. Obviously, this is your home company. I know there's some other places you'd like to work with. We spoke about on the air, but I want to ask you first of all, do you have one or two final things you'd like to say to your old tag team partner after what he did to you in Edward James?
TikTok, buddy. It's just a matter of time. I don't know when. I don't know where. But you got one coming to you. For sure.
Oof, boy, that certainly cut like a knife there. That definitely cut like a knife there. And I certainly think if I'm Mr. James, I certainly want to tread very lightly there when it comes to all of what could be coming your way. Maybe March 30th, maybe not March 30th. So we'll have to certainly see there. But let me ask you then another question. I always ask this to people that come on to Sportswire over the years. If you had one or two moments in your career that stood out most, what would they be?
Oh man. Oof. I have no idea. Like each one holds a special place in my heart. So it would be impossible to just pick one.
So I always come prepared when wrestlers tell me this or anybody else in general. So I've got a response for you. You know what it's going to be? Your next moment, the best is yet to come. The
Exactly.
two
There we
moments
go.
are the moments that haven't happened because, as I always tell people, the future is endless. The sky is the limit. So the best is yet to come. So your best moments,
Okay.
they will arrive sooner rather than later. So that would be my answer to you on that. So I think that's why I always come prepared. That's why I had a feeling.
Better than I ever could.
Well, you know what? At this point, I mean, there's a lot of things I get wrong, but at least on that, I tried at least to make up for some of the things that I say on and off the air. But yes, that's what I would want to say with that. I also want to ask you before I get to closing thoughts. What does it mean to you to be a part of Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling?
Oh, it's everything to me. Like this is the American dream for me. For me, my brother, growing up, that's all we ever wanted was to be professional wrestlers. Like and from day one of me growing up and the doctors telling me with me having asthma and having all the health issues that I've had that I would never be able to do it. Like that broke my heart, but it fueled me to be able to prove the world wrong. And then when my brother passed, I knew at that point I had to do it. Like my mother is the only family member I have left,
Oh,
and she was like, "Don't do it. You can't go back." Like I have no choice in that matter. Like I have to do it. I have to honor my brother, and to me, this is everything. To, and yeah, the wins and losses mean stuff, but like for me to be able to honor my brother at the end of the day and look back at my career, no matter what I am able to achieve, like I just hope that he's able to look down and be proud of me. That's everything to me.
Well, I can tell you before I ask you one more question, before we get to closing thoughts here on Sportswire Radio, that your brother's definitely looking down on you. He's definitely smiling. He's definitely proud of you. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are proud of you because all you've done in this great sport of wrestling, you have been a huge part of all wrestling matters. You have been a huge part of people's lives in the world of music. You've done a great job there, and the best is yet to come. You're only going to be able to do bigger and better things ahead. And I want to make sure that you know that everybody else here does. Let me get to a couple of other things here. Just want to say, Andrew, that I hope you get the tag titles back. So maybe you have to find a tag team partner. Maybe Ethan's your tag team partner coming up next. I don't know. I don't know if
Maybe
Ethan's
you never know.
I
Anything's
have no
possible.
idea at this point. Ethan had a question. I don't know how much time you spent in Brooklyn, but did you have a favorite spot in Brooklyn when you visited Brooklyn at all?
Human Heads record
Okay.
shop.
You mentioned
I
that here
spend
earlier.
hours there. There'd be points where like I would go there just to DJ down at the harbor, but like I would just go up with the goal of coming home with like one or two records. I would next thing I know, I would have spent like $200 in the $1
I knew
like
you were going to say
area,
that.
like just mounds, just two big boxes walking down Brooklyn. My friend's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, park closer." Like I don't know what to tell you. Like I'm gonna use every one of these things.
Well, I'm going to tell you actually a quick. I don't know how much time you ever spent in Manhattan, but there was two places that used to be like that. Would be Bleecker Box and then it was Generation Records. Generation
Oh,
Records
I
was
know about
like
Generation Records.
okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah,
Generation Records was like everybody went there. Like I was more of a heavy metal fan, and like my friends that were into heavy metal that would find like obscure heavy metal records. All
yeah.
swore by Generation Records, but then conversely, if you were like a punk fan, if you were a club, like they had everything. Generation Records had stuff that was
I
like
love
it,
punk music.
yeah,
Oh,
they had like stuff that was so like you couldn't find it like in the countries of the bands that they had. Generation was the place to be. Then it was Bleecker, it was either Bleecker Bob's or Bleecker Box. That was another place that people used to go to in the village. And then there was a place that used to be around, but really wasn't to the degree of what Generation and Bleecker was. But I used to like it because I went to college not too far from there. J&R Music. J&R Music was a place you go there. They had vinyl. They had a list of collectible stuff you could buy. Like I love like wrestling like you. And
yeah.
I would buy sometimes like I would buy a cassette or a CD, and then I would buy like they used to have the WWE trading card. So I would get like my
Oh,
wrestling
yeah,
cards. I would get my
yeah.
wrestling cards, and then I would get like a CD. So I used to like J&R Music. They kind of had a little bit of everything. So I was big into
I'm a big
J&R.
collector of the WWE Elite figures too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's one of the guys that we have come on the show, Darkron. He's got all the figures and all that stuff. And
Like if you looked at my bookshelf, let me see if I can get over there. Like,
yeah, I
uh,
think I just saw. Yep, I see it. I saw it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
saw it.
Like half of it's my brother's collection. The other half is just like there's so many. There's probably like thousands of dollars in wrestling figures there.
Well,
Like,
don't sell them. Don't sell them is my
no,
advice.
no, I can't. I
Don't
can't.
sell them. I want to say hello before I get to something else to my buddy, Mr. Anthony Steele. Anthony, I hope you're doing well out there. He says, how you doing today? Well, I'm doing great, Anthony. We're about to close this show. I'm going to be back on at 11 o'clock with Mr. Drake Golddragon of Resurrection Wrestling. So I hope that you're doing well and you continue to be who you are. And we'll see you on Sportsfire Radio soon here. The real deal, Anthony Steele. But yeah, those were some great places. Virgin Records I would go to from time to time, but Virgin was like
Virgin's real
every
picky.
yeah,
Like it's tough to
Virgin.
find certain things.
Yeah, Virgin. It was I think like the tourist person liked to go to Virgin,
Yeah.
but their collection wasn't what Generation had. It wasn't, you
No.
know. It was like I
It
liked
was like
going
pulling
there.
teeth to be able to find what you really wanted there. Honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Virgin to me.
To me, like I couldn't pass up like the dollar bins over at Human Heads. Like
Oh
oh,
yeah,
like
yeah. I
because
remember
at
those.
that time frame, I was spinning house and trance music, and I was trying
Okay.
to merge both of those together.
Oh yeah, you
Like
would.
I was on the hunt, just picking like crazy. Like I found like white pressed German trance that like they only made 100 of there. I was like,
Oh my
"Yep,
god.
grabbing this and this and
That's
this."
you
Like,
know what? That's when you go to those places. There's a place that just opened up. It's reopened up. It's off Canal and Broadway, and they're doing a mix of music and merchandise. And every time I pass by there, I'm like, If I go in there, I'm going to drop like $500. So let me not go there. Let me just go straight right past it. Because if I go in there, they have like vintage
That's one
this.
of those times for tax return season that you need to go.
Unfortunately, in my bracket, I'm the one that's paying the taxes. So at this point, I'm going to avoid that. But if you have the opportunity to get your tax return,
I wish.
I would certainly say do that. But yeah, I'll see Anthony
I
tomorrow.
break even, barely even.
People wouldn't feel sorry for me, but that's okay. I want to ask you one more question. We talk about inducting all these different people into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, and I was thinking about this, and obviously Anthony Steele is going in next Sunday, and I was just wondering, with your background, your legacy, obviously we've done a lot of work with Enterprise and Amplify. Would you be interested if maybe you might want to come on to Sportswire Radio sometime toward the end of next month and, I don't know, be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, Mr. Loveless, for everything
Wow.
would you be
Sure.
interested in that?
Yeah, it'd be an honor. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking about it because I think with your background, your story, what you've done outside the wrestling world, inside the wrestling world, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I
was
thinking about it before we came on the air. Like, you know what? Let me surprise him, because some people, when I had DVG on, he was like, "Well, I don't think I should be in the Hall of Fame." Well, I'm like, I'm the selection committee. It's kind of like when Vince McMahon used to run it. There's really like one person on the committee, so you don't really have much of a choice. But yeah, I was thinking with your background, everything you've done in this sport, and I think most importantly, I think you'd make your brother proud.
Thank you.
I think it'd make your brother proud, and I think that's what we try to do on sports.
That's all that matters at the end of the day for me. It's my brother, man.
And I think that's, to me, why I think we're going to do it sometime toward the end of next month. So I think that mark your calendar, and we're going to pick a day, and you're going to go into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, because after all, Van Hansen's going in. You have to go in, right?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like Van Hansen's accomplished a lot more than me.
It was a joke. He was a joke. I mean, Chase Wakefield's in the, well, how about this? Chase Wakefield's in the Hall of Fame. Now you have to go in.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
Brandon Castelli's in the Hall of Fame. Now you really have to go in.
Okay.
Two guys you just saw in the locker room. And Mr. Judgment's in the Hall. Well, Judgment's actually really accomplished. Judgment has had a great...
Judgment is a monster. He's so talented.
I'm surprised you didn't mention wanting to wrestle Judgment, because Judgment, oh my God, Judgment is like... he has like 3 or 4 championships currently. He's like...
I didn't say his name for a reason. And that's because I feel like I don't have enough experience under my belt yet.
Interesting.
But I appreciate his work a lot.
Oh my! His moves that is so big, man. The Judgment Slam, what he does in that, his kind of more or less what he does off even the top rope. I mean, what he does inside his move set. He creates his own moves. He has his own laboratory. I mean, what he does. I mean, it's just. I mean, the only other big man I've seen like him, there's a guy in the UK named Disciple who looks almost like Mr. Judgment, has the same type of moveset, the spine buster. He's got the slam. He's got the look. I mean, he's almost a carbon.
I got ways to go yet.
Okay.
Experience-wise, before I step up to a guy like him, is where I feel. Like, and it's whatever. But like, I would like to see Judgment one day step in the ring with Robbie Page.
You know what? Now that I would agree with you on, and I expect to have Judgment back on probably 2 months from now. I just had him on like a month ago. So knowing Judgment's kind of like when he wants to come on. So I don't prod Mr. Judgment. It's usually when he wants to come on. So I don't ask Mr. Judgment. Now,
he's a busy man. He's got a lot of work going on.
Well, it's not like Chase Wakefield. Chase Wakefield's always like, we always talk, hey, you want to come on Sportswire? Yeah, sure, I'll come on Sportswire. Whereas Mr. Judgment, it's like, yes, sir. I don't want that Judgment Slam. I don't want to be, the prophet of purgatory. But all right, we're going to make some history with you. This has been a lot of fun. I tell you what, you definitely, lived up to all the expectations. I cannot wait for people to see what you do in the ring, though, coming up. I know whatever it might be, and I know that Mr. Edward James, your days are certainly going to be coming to you. You certainly have payback coming your way. But certainly, Mr. Andrew Loveless, I would like to give you the floor. I'd like to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you'd like to plug, share, or say? And the floor may be yours, and I pass the baton to you.
I just appreciate being on here. Like, I appreciate your work. I appreciate the platform that you give all of us to be able to be able to share our stories and be able to brand ourselves out to the world. It means a lot to guys like us that don't get the opportunities a lot of times. Like we really appreciate guys like you.
Oh, I
And
appreciate that. No,
I
well, no,
tell
I
people,
appreciate that. Very nice of you. Very kind of you to say that. Very kind. I mean, I hear that all the time from people like, no, 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 no. I read a note on the air from there's a show going on tonight from the guys in Iowa, the Iowa Midwest Federation of Wrestling. And they're like, Tom, I just want to thank you for giving us an opportunity. I'm like, no, 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 you guys go out there. I just want to be able to tell the story, but you are the guys that are in the story, and you are the guys that put the work in, and you guys deserve to have that story told tenfold. And I'll always make sure that I'll have all of your backs because it's all wrestling matters, and I'll let everybody always have that opportunity to have that place to be able to say it on Sportswire, and that's why I am so thankful that we get a chance to work with Enterprise and Amplified. I can't thank enough the companies. I can't thank them enough for putting me in the Hall of Fame. I don't know why, but I appreciate that very much. But I really am
they
looking
might be
forward
those
to.
epic chops. Look at those things,
I
man.
get well. I was actually
Harley Race would be proud. Like, look at those things.
well. I had a 14-year-old kid actually stop me in the street today. Said, "Hey, you had nice hair there." A 14-year-old kid stopped me. I was walking home.
See?
I get them. I get that a lot. A guy said, "Hey, you got another guy yesterday. Hey, you got those chops, right?" So I'm like, "Yeah." I,
They're
they're
legendary, man. Look at them. They deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
well, maybe the mutton chops, but yeah, I've actually been growing them for almost 5.5 years now. 5.5 years.
Amazing.
5.5 years. Yep, 5.5 years at this point. Yeah, and
I
I
hope
have a
I can
freak.
get my facial hair somewhere on that point at
You
some
got a
point.
good look though, but you do look like a DJ though. You do have the DJ look because I actually know a few DJs. You actually do have no. You have. I think you need to stay with your look because you got the tattoos. You fit as a DJ. You fit as a wrestler. You are certainly violent. You do have that violent love look towards you. But you're in the ring. You're obviously who you are, and then also as a DJ, you're also who you are. So I think you have a good look too. I think everybody's look is unique, and
The
that's
funny
why.
thing about each one of these is like each one of these, I tell people it's not art. It's a badge of honor and a backstory to each individual
Well, I'm so
piece.
glad you said that because I will say this before we go. Too many times people get tattoos and they're like they get one like my
They're like, it's
cousin
pretty. I want this. Like, no
my
rhyme or
cousin
reason.
my cousin got one who celebrated a birthday yesterday and and I although I haven't seen him in like 10 years but he got a tattoo of like the Grim Reaper and I was like I looked at it on his leg and it was like I would never have gotten a tattoo like that. If I would get a tattoo, it has to be some type of meaning. I wouldn't just get it
Yeah,
like people get it
yeah,
for
I'm
like
the same way.
Superman and Batman. If I were to get one, it would be, you know, just a meaningful. I don't know, but I think what you have is certainly a look, and I think that that's why you are going to certainly make Edward James pay, and certainly we'll have to see more of that. If you want to follow Enterprise and Amplified tomorrow night, I'm here with Lydia Myers, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on all platforms. If you want to follow Amplified, YouTube, Facebook. Enterprise is also on Facebook as well. Check them out. Power Hour is up. You better power up and go watch it because if you don't, he's going to come after you. Van Hansen's going to come after you. Yes.
We're gonna humble you.
Oh, somebody will, because in this sport, you get humbled a lot. So I want to make sure that I'm not humbled, and I don't want to be broken in half because Andrew Loveless is going to do that, I have no doubt, to Edward James. My friend, it's been an absolute honor. I'm looking forward to having
Man,
more from you. I'm looking forward to seeing you to be a part of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame sometime
thank you.
toward the end of next month. We'll pick a date, maybe around this time. And I thank you for all that you do here in this sport. You're making us all proud. Keep up the great work, and we'll see you also in the club somewhere.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tom. I
You
appreciate
got it.
you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we were joined with one half of the former Amplified Wrestling Tag Team Champions for 9 months, and he certainly will get those championships back, I have no doubt. Or maybe even that live wire championship held by Sugar Dan Stovko. We're talking about none other than the be-all, Mr. Andrew Loveless, who proved that he is definitely the be-all, and he's never going to be the end-all here on Sportswire because he's always going to be the be-all. But if you are on Sportswire Radio, I'll be back here in a little over an hour with Mr. Drake Golddragon, so hang on tight for station identification here on Sportswire Radio. If you're on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, just also hang on and you'll go back to your regularly scheduled programming. Probably some Peter Gabriel Sledgehammer on the radio set because I have like his intro.
Ooh,
Like, yeah, we
good
have.
choice.
Yeah, well, it's pre-programmed, but until then, I'll see everybody in a little while. And thank you to all of our friends at Enterprise and Amplified. As a reminder, one more time, follow Andrew at all these platforms, But also, Lydia Myers is here, 7:30 tomorrow. Be there or be square, because all wrestling matters on Sportswire Radio. We'll see everybody in a little